What's up, everybody? It's Steve. I'm back again. This is part two of a breakdown I'm doing that's kind of focused on money and just breaking down some of the basic stuff first. I might get to the symbolism and all that other stuff later, but for now we're going to just kind of stick to the basics. And something as I was doing the notes in between the last video, this video, checking out some of my old notes, something I thought that was interesting and I wanted to address about money is how people go about acquiring money. Just how people work, what is work, different things of that nature. And I like to do what's called like a cross reference. I always, because I am a Christian, because I read the Bible, and I tend to just want to always learn something new each day. That's something I always strive to do, is learn something new every day. Okay, so some of the notes I looked at from the past and that were about scripture and different things, I always make a comparison to the secular so-called things, and vice versa. I'll do something that may pop up. I'll say, okay, when are if there's a scripture addressing a specific thing, or one might come to mind. So I wanted to make a comparison, right, with so-called work week, right? Because we know, just regular person, especially if you live here in America, you know that a regular work week is what? It consists of 5 days, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 per se. Everybody's looking for, a solid 9 to 5 because the economy is bad, so on and so forth. But what's interesting is if you do a biblical comparison, it's a little bit different how, the true scripture interpretations of a work week. And where can you find some of these? It should be something everybody that's a Christian, or even if you're not, you've probably heard of it, and it's a familiar thing, the Ten Commandments, or Ten Commands, if you will. And I'll get into a video breakdown of that later, as far as commandments, what are the commands, what's the law, different things, so on and so forth. But for now, just sticking to the basics. You can check it out. It's in Exodus chapter 20. And one thing I wanted to note is that people kind of identify certain things, but it's always good too, if you are going to check and review a scripture, to kind of read the whole chapter in a sense, get the backstory, get the stuff leading up to it, get things that follow, because sometimes when people do that, they miss things. And one of the things I think people have missed when they're looking into the Ten Commandments is that if you look at the fourth command, right, everybody knows, it says, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Or some people don't even go that far. They just, make it as far as just keep a day holy. Which is interesting because if you look throughout the Bible, English or in Hebrew, because if you saw the first video, I do, a little bit of Hebrew study and make the connection there on that level. But what's interesting is that when the Bible talks about, creating certain things, right? And even if you get into the etymology of create or creator, essentially what that means is to make something out of nothing. And that attribute is only attributed to God. Interesting. He is the only true creator, because even if you think of, like I said, I'm a graphic designer, I create things, but I recreate in a sense that what I'm making comes from something that already exists. Even if I was to make, an excellent layout or a spread for something, or what I'm doing right now, working on a book, I'm using words and, different things, typography principles. But the words, I haven't created the language. Typography principles, I wasn't the first to do that. So I'm recreating, but even in that sense, it all came from something somewhere, which originates to the creation itself. Things on Earth, things in the galaxy, the universe. Who created those things? God did. And I can address that other stuff later, as far as the atheism, Big Bang Theory, all of that stuff. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is just to point out that it's when it talks about the work week, it says 6 days you shall work, 1 day you shall rest, and that rest day is the Sabbath, which is the holy day which God created. Which is interesting because it gives you a cycle right there, as far as how people want to work. And even Christians will complain about, the world at large, the government, economy, they'll complain about a lot of things. But they're not even following the basic principles, because notice what is the pretext. You have to recognize the one day as being the true worship, holy day, but the rest of the week you're working. And since those are work days. Interesting, because even if people just applied that very principle, you might be doing better in this world just by following that biblical principle. Because think about it, how many people are following that? They'll say, times is hard, this, that, and the third, or, oh, I'm B, it's been a rough work week, I can't wait for the weekend. And maybe it has been a rough work week, and maybe things are difficult, but also you need to be working smarter and not just harder all the time. Because just because you're working 6 days, it doesn't mean you're not working, hard on certain things. Even because on the original, timetable, what we would recognize now as being Friday, that was the hardest working day of the week. Notice the difference in that between, the secular world and, like I said, that biblical connection. Notice the difference. Most of the time, by the time you get to Friday, you're on cruise control. You can't wait to get out of there. It's 4:30. Let me hurry up so I can, get on to my weekend and do what I want to do, right? But on a biblical level, that was the hardest working day because it was the day before the Sabbath. And I'll get into the changes and, the weekly cycle not really being lost, but just other things in the calendar being changed. But just sticking to the weekly cycle for a second. That was the hardest working day because they knew like pretty much everything's going to be closed. And they talk about these Sunday blue laws now and different things being changed. But in the original context, people rested on the Sabbath day, which was what we would recognize today as being Saturday. That's why it says the seventh day, not a day, a spiritual day, make up a holy day. The Sabbath on the seventh day. Interesting. But people now do the opposite. So from a biblical perspective, technically, a lot of us are lazy. And this is something I had to recognize too, because, you don't always know everything, or sometimes there's mistranslations, misinterpretations going on. So you got to make the connection. But this is what's so fascinating to me and what brings everything, full circle. Look at the difference between the biblical sense and the secular and see that there is a connection. There's been some true manipulation throughout people and throughout the ages that humanity's gone from one thing, now we're at another. So think about that, and it's not always about working to get money or to do certain things. It's just the fact that there is work to be done. So 6 out of 7 days you should be working or doing something. It doesn't always have to necessarily be, you're clocking in somewhere, you're doing a job on that level. Because remember, like I said before, and it says in the Word, charity covers a multitude of sin. But just because something's charity doesn't mean that it's not work. So just keep that in mind too. And notice what it says also. Check it out. It's in Leviticus chapter 25. It talks about usury. Now that might be like an old English usury. We don't speak like that. What does that mean? In a nutshell, what that means is basically like an increase of some sort, like profit, or I guess you could say like more correctly, like what really technically was going on now, taxation, something like that. It's just about like an increase or profit dealing with money, like interest. Like when you take out like a loan, you have interest. So basically, another word that we can use commonly now for usury would be like interest. And it's telling you about like different work practices and different things, and saying that you don't handle dealings with money, brethren to brethren, or brother to brother, or even person to person, with the idea of getting an increase on which you lend that person out to. It says the same thing with food too. And think about all the stuff people are now just becoming conscious about, the GMOs, Codex Alimentarius, things like that. And it's kind of like messing up the food, messing up the water system, so on and so forth, all these different things, so that somebody can make profit off of like kind of cleaning that stuff up. Which goes back into what I was saying in part 1 about, food, water, different things that can be provided for on the earth for free because it's a natural resource. But notice what they're doing. There's a charge for that. So it's like kind of like you pollute the water first or pollute different things so that you have to charge them for clean water and different things. That's kind of like playing God, because like even if you think about it, they say like a so-called like a landlord. What makes you the the lord over the land? Like who? Why are we paying you? Like you don't even pay God attention, and God created these things, and it even also it says that 10% of your labor should be going to Him, and it's like He don't need the money. He's not collecting it, so people don't get that twisted either about like tithes, offerings, and things of that nature. That's a principle in it within itself, and maybe I'll do that in a future breakdown. But overall, the message is about the work week and the difference in the work week. And I thought that was fascinating, because now you have people that fail to recognize these principles, but yet they complain and complain, and they do nothing to change it. And then even people that do seek these things out and do read scripture and different things of that nature, how do they always miss this? I thought that was interesting. And another thing that I'm going to break down too, that I think that people are familiar with as far as they know it and everything, or have heard of it, or even recite this on a daily thing, but I had to think about the metaphors. You know what I mean? And check this one out, right? The Lord's Prayer is breaking out all these things, but what does it say in the Lord's Prayer? It talks about, give us this day our daily bread, right? And I had to really meditate on this one to catch it completely. You know what I'm saying? Because there's, like I said, there's layers upon layers upon layers. And doing it in Hebrew is especially interesting. And I'll probably break that down in a future video, but it's not going to be for this one. But think about it. It's like a threefold kind of a thing. And that's part of what I'm working on in my book. It's like kind of, I guess you can call it, not like necessarily a trinity, but for the lack of a better term, like the triune Godhead perspective on breaking things down into threes, right? So think about when you break the word bread metaphorically down by three, right? There's the literal sense first, which is bread is food, nourishment. You need that every day. You need to eat every day, for the most part, unless you're fasting or different things like that or whatever. But in a nutshell, you need to eat to survive, right? So give us this day our daily bread. So eating. That's one sense of it. Now let's breaking it down from, the secular and also the biblical. Metaphorically, right, bread is the word. That's scripture. So in a sense, whether you say it's, you're Christian or not, believe in God or not, the premise to it all is knowledge. Seek out knowledge. Be learning something daily. Okay? So when's the last time you learned something? And don't answer it and hit me up with a comment to tell me what you learned. Just think about that and, kind of self-correct. Because I'm not here to be anybody's guru either. I don't want that to get mistaken. I'm not trying to start, a church or organization or anything. I'm just putting the information out there. Willing to help, but I'm not trying to be a guru. Okay? But moving forward, that's the second metaphor, like as far as knowledge, seeking that out daily. And the third one I thought that was interesting. Some of you might get it, some of you may debate it or what have you. But bread is also metaphorically kind of like in a slang thing, or just even, people understand it as gaining money. And I thought that was interesting, because even in today's world, it's telling you 3 quintessential ingredients for success. And this, you can use it as a business tip, because in some ways it is. Work hard, first of all. That's the prerequisite to everything. 6 days you should work. So if you're only working 5 days or less out a week, add to that, and there's no way you can't make more money working more. Not overworking or becoming a workaholic or becoming greedy and covetousness. No, just in the sense of being practical. Okay, people have families to feed, bills to pay, so on and so forth. You have to do those things. But that's one aspect of it, right? The second is gain knowledge every day. So study to show yourself approved in that sense, and just kind of work out your knowledge, add to it. And it's not always just like being a scholar or being on honor roll or the dean's list, a straight A student, or graduating with a degree. But you can get knowledge in all type of sorts of ways, and especially nowadays with all the technology, there's really less excuses for the ignorance or just for the means in which to seek it out. There's a lot of ways you can do that. Okay. Thirdly, get money every day. Now, that's going to be a little bit harder because we know how the system is set up now. There's taxation, there's different things. And notice how interesting that is. It's telling you, give us this day our daily bread, in the sense that every day that you work, right, you should be receiving some type of compensation for your work, because the purpose in which you're working is to maintain your foundation. So think about it for a moment. And that's just part of, getting into, that it's the dollar bill and what is a bill and all of that stuff, and what does it mean, is to get you all hyped up about these, payday, when is a bill going to be due, the anxiety of that, all these other different things, right? But notice how it affects people's consciousness, it affects their feelings, their emotions. If you can't get it every day, or you need it, an emergency may pop up, and it's like, oh, I can't do that till payday. But you worked it that day probably, and the day before or that week before. Think about it now. Sometimes you don't get paid once every 2 weeks. So on a biblical level, that is approximately 12 days worth of work. Even on a secular, that's 10 days worth of work, and you're getting it all in one day. There's something wrong with that. There's a lot wrong with that. But that's just on the basic level, just trying to be able to understand certain things. But notice that there is a difference, and how did this difference happen? Through people, through these bogus laws that are being passed, and different things that have a disconnect. Disconnect the people from the truth. And all right, so just picking up from where I was leaving off. There's different laws, there's different things in the world today that prevent people from truly prospering and being able to gain wealth, gain knowledge, so forth and so on. And a lot of these things are putting a strain on the people. And why are these things in place, and what's the reason that they do that? It's kind of like, if you've seen the movie The Matrix, you can totally get where I'm coming from with this. It's to have people be a battery. You're the energy, you're that life force that's charging the system and keeping it going, and you really aren't being a leader in a sense. Because think about it, if you are a boss, or quote unquote a boss, and you own a business and you're running it, you get the money at the top, you're basically in control, you're the CEO, whatever, COO, whatever. You probably are getting paid every day. There's, we know how technology is with PayPal and different things, these direct deposits. So it's not like it was in previous, decades, where it may take a while and certain things. The technology in that sense is allowing people to make the money quicker and to receive it quicker. So all these transactions, different things can go on. So if you are getting, meaning the employee, the staff, right? Remember, with the first part, with the money breakdown, and part of the meaning of the word money in Hebrew, there's a symbol for a letter, the letter S, that's like staff. You're the prop, you're the thing keeping the business up and moving, and you may get paid on payday once a week, once every 2 weeks, whenever you get paid. The upper echelon are up here, and you're down here, and it's kind of like you're getting the crumbs left from, the big slice of bread, if you will. There's another metaphoric example that fits hand in glove with what I've been saying. But it starts really with the education level, because notice that there are not a lot of, there's not a lot of means within the system that are showing you really how to, control your own life, which really is controlling your soul, controlling that life force, because we know in today's world the money aspect controls, how you provide and protecting your foundation, being stable in that sense. So why is it that they don't teach you how to be, really be a boss or run a business or start a business? They teach you how to be plugged in, because it's all part of the game. It's all part of the game that they run on people. And a lot of people, especially more recently, if you've been attending college or looking for jobs after your graduation and different things, you'll know that the debts can be hefty for a lot of people. Debts in a lot of different, ways. Natural disasters can happen, just things that happen that has a price tag attached to it, and it's hard to kind of recover when, for a lot of people, to get the means in order to do these things, you have to kind of take out a loan and do different things, and that's going piggybacking right off of the interest thing. It's all, in a sense, not all, but in some ways, in a sense, setting you up for failure, or really setting you up for debt, because then in the long run, maybe you don't totally fail, but you don't totally win either. You're just kind of like, that hamster on the wheel, just running, and always doing something, but never essentially doing what you want and really growing. So that's just, some food for thought and things to take into consideration, because ultimately the plan should be for every person to at least have the basics: food, clothing, shelter, and to take it a step further, not always be wealthy in the sense that you're a millionaire, because that's unrealistic. Everybody's not going to be a millionaire, and not because you can't on a level of potential. Everybody could potentially do, whatever. Humanity has a vast potential. We use our imagination. Think about that. They say that human beings, for the most part, use 10% of their mental capacity, yet our collective imagination is so strong. We give value to something like this, right, that intrinsically it has no value in and of itself. So the potential is unlimited. It's just a matter of what's going to happen. See, something can happen, and then something will happen. So what will happen is up to you. So it's about controlling your destiny and putting yourself in a better position, and that way you can also, put your kids and future generations to come in a better position. Think about that for a moment. How is it that you can prosper on a certain level, right, as you're living, but really have the higher expectation for the next generation? Just because technology is here, that's not the key answer for everything either. You can't just be dependent on the system. You can't be dependent on the system leaders and different things. You have to be that light, that that solution you want to see in the world. You have to start with you and take that first step. Because if we're not doing it individually, then there's no way collectively we can do it. So part of what I'm doing is just trying to get that message out there, communicate, and just be in contact with as many people as possible, get information out there, learn from you people, and hopefully you're learning something from me. Because like I said, I try to learn something new each day, and that's part of your daily bread. So take the opportunity to learn something, so that iron sharpens iron. Everybody can be sharp and be on top of their game. So more to come, but I'm going to leave it here for now, and just be ready, because I'm going to have some more stuff coming. So hopefully everybody will enjoy this, be able to take something from it, and share it with other people. Share some stuff with me, because I'm always, like I said, I'm looking for stuff every day. So it's not just about me getting this word out there and doing it in my perspective, but it's also being able to receive stuff from other people too. So this is just another means of communication that I'm reaching out. So hopefully I'll be getting some feedback on this pretty soon, and more to come. Stay tuned.